All right. Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be painting a flower field with a little goldfinch in it. It's a lot easier than it looks actually, and I hope you will join me, be inspired to paint it yourself. Let's get started. Hey guys, this is my example painting here. I've got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
And we are going to be doing this live for you today. Really excited. This was a fun one. I've had this image that I got off of the royalty-free website for quite a while now, and it really, I just love it. I don't know, something about the blurriness of the background and the little flowers in the foreground. I changed the composition just a little bit to add a few more flowers, make it a little bit more interesting. So let me talk about our palette here. I used kind of a rainbow of colors here. You can kind of mix and match whatever you happen to have in your own palette. This is burnt sienna, quinacridone magenta, naphthol red medium, but really any red will do. Pyrrole orange. I always have a hard time saying that word. But really like any kind of orange probably will work fine. Yellow, cadmium yellow light, cadmium yellow medium, yellow oxide, phthalo green yellow shade. This is phthalo turquoise, which can be mixed with these two colors. This is phthalo blue green shade. And then ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, unbleached titanium, and titanium white. So, and we're going to mix our own black. I know that was on the list, but if you don't want to mix it, you can add carbon black to it, your list. So pretty simple palette. We'll be using a few brushes, and I'll go over those as I pull them out to use. So let's get going with this background. I'm going to set that aside. And I'm using a 9 by 12 inch canvas panel. Actually, it's a MDF panel, gesso board. Got something on there yesterday. And I'm going to use my large brush to start with. This is just a number 12 bright Princeton. Add a little bit of water to it. Grab a little bit of white and some Phthalo Blue. That'll be kind of our brightest area of this background. So I'm going to put that in there and then start doing kind of a halo around it. Pick up a little bit more Phthalo Blue. Pick up a little bit more and some burnt sienna just on the corner there. Phthalo Blue and burnt sienna make a really interesting turquoise. So we'll use some of that. Look how beautiful that color is. It just tones down the Phthalo Blue just a little bit and makes it a little bit softer or more muted version of itself. We'll put that all the way up in the corners. So we're doing the corners a little bit darker and then working this lighter color around here. What's the matter? What are you doing? Mark's hovering over my shoulder here.
I was hearing a little bit of mic rub there, so I was just checking to see what it could have been.
Okay. Turquoise. Grab some turquoise. So I'm working this wet into wet here, just adding colors. Staying about just maybe below halfway. So I don't want the darker colors to reach down quite this far yet. And this is just our first layer. We'll have another layer on top of this. Grab some ultramarine blue now. And then you notice I'm not cleaning out my brush, so they're all kind of merging together, but I'm using colors that mix well, so all of these blues and greens play well together. They're not going to turn muddy brown on me, so I can use them without cleaning out my brush. Okay, now I'm going to work my way down here a little bit. There's a really bright, shiny spot right there. I'll hold it up a little bit. I didn't notice that when we were. Not sure where that's coming from. We changed around my studio last night, so we're going to have some issues trying to figure out where the best lights to come from, or how to move our lights around. So we added our second monitor last night. So Mark's actually the man behind the controls today.
Yes.
It's a little scary.
It's a super thanks to the Patreon supporters.
Yes, we made that possible.
Mm-hmm.
This is Phthalo Green here that I'm adding now down here. Yeah, that was, and I added a little bit of cadmium yellow to it just to soften it just slightly. It's kind of mixing with these blues that I had in my brush already though, so. And this blue had started to dry, so I don't know if you see that. There was kind of a line here. They're not mixing. That's fine. That'll be covered eventually, so I'm not worried about it. I do want it fairly dark down here, so I'm grabbing a little bit more turquoise. This first layer is gonna be fairly dark. Okay, I can't hold that. I'll do this at the same time. Maybe I'll put this there. Would that block it? No, it's coming from above. Or tilt it maybe a little bit, I don't know.
Just keep on going like nothing's happening.
Okay, pretend like Mark's not reaching over my head to mess with the lights here. Yeah, that's too dark now. No, 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 it's making it worse.
That's very shiny there.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we need to put your filter back.
Okay, well, we'll do that tomorrow. Okay, I need you to dry this anyway, so while you're up, might as well.
Might as well do something.
So one of the things we're going to be doing with this is trying to achieve this kind of blurriness that's happening with some of these flowers. So if you have a either stiff bristled brush, I've pulled out several examples of things that would work. These are hog hair bristle brushes here. They've got the white bristles and they're firm. You can kind of tell that they're a little bit different. These ones you don't want to add water to because they'll get a little bit soggy if you add water, but we can use them to kind of dry brush or scrub in some of these soft fuzziness. I also have a couple brushes that I've beat up over the years that are kind of, you can say this one is really messed up. And they're stiff bristled, fairly stiff bristled. So this one especially is an old Simmons Titanium and it's very stiff. So for a non bristle brush. So those would work too. And I think I'm going to use this one to do the next layer.
Hi, everybody.
There's Mark's hand. Oh, the shine's gone. Oh, nice. Okay, so we're going to use this brush now for the next layer, and I'm going to grab some more of that Phthalo Blue. We're basically just going to go back over what we've already done, but with this smaller brush here, I can get a little bit more control. And I'm going to try to soften it up, so I'm going to work around Phthalo Blue and a little burnt sienna. And I'm going to add a little bit of water once I get that paint down. Maybe not that much. There we go. And then I can kind of work out those edges. Now, the one thing that you don't want to do is scrub too hard with this because these paint colors underneath are still drying. Even though they're dry technically, they're still not cured. So if you scrub too hard, you could lift off those colors. So we don't want that to happen.
See, you know the best part of these shows here?
What?
Is that she can be talking and I'm not paying attention and I don't feel guilty.
I think I'm going to work with a little bit larger brush. This one's just not quite doing it for me. Oh, Mark.
Just saying there.
You don't feel guilty for not listening to me?
Right.
Because if we were at home and I was talking like this, you'd have to listen.
Right.
Or at least sort of
listen.
listen.
If we're sitting on the couch doing something and you're talking
about something
I feel
like
obliged to listen to what you're saying.
You probably should be listening, sort of, at least a little bit to what I'm saying. You're supposed to be my co-host here.
Mix, blend, paint, repeat.
Oh, goodness. Get no respect. Okay, that was Ultramarine Blue. I'm grabbing some turquoise, add a little bit of white to it here. And I'm just going to kind of use very little paint on my brush here. There we go, that's better. This is going a little bit faster too. So kind of creates these little fuzzy, if you get it so that it's not too thick with paint, you can get a little bit more ultramarine blue here. Load your brush and then kind of tap it off before you go to the canvas. There we go. That's working. I tried several different techniques when I was doing the background on the example one. So what I would suggest is just try a few different things, see which one works best for you for whatever brushes you've got. Because if you don't have this kind of brush, it may work better for you to do more washes, kind of like what I started out doing there, but maybe use a little bit larger brush for it. So there's kind of different ways of working it. I could also, I'll put some of this is turquoise here. I could also do something where I use like a mop brush and used a little bit thicker paint with the mop brush. So maybe I'd grab a little bit thicker paint, put it on kind of thickly onto my canvas, and then used a soft mop to sort of blend out the edges. And that's another way of, and the mop could be just slightly damp. These are really soft brushes. So there's several different ways of achieving this kind of blended look. Just depends on what brushes you happen to have and what technique kind of seems to work best for you. So don't feel like you have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it here, but I'm kind of finding that I'm liking this bigger brush here, so I'm going to keep going with it. Grab some Phthalo Green here, add some little areas of Phthalo Green. Just kind of doing little scrubbing circular motions. And I'm just wanting that background to kind of be, I don't know, faded, like there's all kinds of wispy things happening. You're not really seeing any major brush strokes. It's all of the brush strokes are kind of blended out into these sort of soft shapes. It's a little bit different than I normally do my backgrounds, but it's actually really effective and really pretty. It's almost like a watercolor type or like a, I don't know, impressionist kind of soft background. All right, let's grab some more Phthalo Blue, a little bit of white. I'll add some of that down here. And if you get too much paint on there, you just wipe it off really well. Go back in and soften up those edges a little bit. And I can also get this color, which was my lighter blue color. Grab a little bit of white. Tap that into the blue because that white's not mixed. There we go. Tap that in. And then I can kind of use that with that paint still wet and just scrub that in. Just kind of doing these circular things so that I don't have any major brush strokes happening. Now I've also used my finger a lot to do this blending, so I'll show you how that works. So if I put on some paint, then I could use my finger and just tap along the edges and blend out sections too. Now this doesn't work as well if you've got a wet background. So when I use my finger, I usually am using it on a dry canvas and just using it to kind of add a little bit of color to maybe one area. So one of the things you just have to be careful with acrylics is that they will start to lift off your canvas if you mess with them too much while they're in the process of drying. So like over here, they're drying now, so I'm not going to go that far over. I'm going to kind of keep working in these areas where they're wet. And add these soft colors. There we go. It's really looking good, I think. Let's add a little bit more of Ultramarine Blue. Mix that in with what's on my brush.
So will there be a traceable for the background? No?
Probably not, no.
Okay, won't be very helpful.
Probably not, no.
Okay.
Sorry, hon.
All right.
Did you need one?
Well, yeah, because I'm a beginner, so.
This is actually, if you're like a first-time painter, this is kind of a tricky technique, but I think that it's doable as long as you're, sorry. I'm leaning over on it. There we go. You can see that. It's just got some darker areas here, darker. Let me put a little bit darker down in here. This area right through here is pretty dark. It's some turquoise. Here, add a few little things. So one of the things that I would not want to do at this point, so I've got this paint on here. It's starting to dry. I would not go in with very wet paint right now, because what would happen is, I'll do it in an area where I don't care, maybe over here. If I went in and started blending with really wet paint, look what happens. It pulls the paint off the canvas. So if you're working in a kind of a dry, thick paint or wet on wet paint, and when I say wet on wet, I don't mean it's watered down. I just mean that the paint is straight off the palette, wet from the bottle, not adding water to it. When I say wash or something like that, that's when we've added a bunch of water to it to make it thin. But so you don't want to add washes at this point if it's in the middle of drying, because it will do this. It will lift off your canvas. So just keep that in mind. So when you're working with these dry paints, you'll be tempted to go in and grab water and come straight to your canvas with a very wet brush, and that will cause these kind of issues. So just be sure that you're always tapping off your brush to get off the excess moisture before you go in to do these blending techniques with the thicker paints. Now, adding washes is another technique that we can do. We just have to do it on a dry canvas. So hope that makes sense. All right, so this is dry down here. So I'm going to add some of this down in here. I'll grab this brush here. This is another one of the stiff bristle brushes. Grab some Phthalo Green and some yellow oxide. Maybe a little bit of the cadmium yellow to brighten it up. There we go. Okay, so we're going to take most of it off there, and we're going to just add, I wasn't worried about that because I know that these colors are going to go over that area. So, and this paint is not watered down, it's just straight from the canvas.
What brush did you grab? Sorry.
This is another hog bristle brush. It's just a phthalo, or a filbert. Grab a little bit of unbleached titanium to soften that color up a little bit. work up here. This is pretty much dry now, so I'm not worried too much about it. And if I'm going to do these kind of vertical streaks so that if any of these brush strokes show, it's going to look like grasses. So now instead of doing the circles, I'm kind of flipping it and just flicking. I'm not moving my arm back and forth. I'm just sort of flicking back and forth over that line, the transition between the green and the background color. There you go. Keep it very soft, so not a lot of paint on your brush. At this point, we're just trying to create the soft transition between those two areas there. Grab some more of the yellow oxide. Take off most of it on my towel there. There we go. We're just dusting. Think about blush or something like that. You're not going to load up your makeup brush with a ton of blush, or you're going to get look like a clown. So that's the same kind of idea here. We're just blushing this color on. We're not trying to cover up what's underneath. That's why we brought this dark down low, so that when we do this light color over the top, it'll create this pretty color.
The autofocus really doesn't like those long brushes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the painting goes out of focus. It's trying to focus on the end of your brush.
Oh, shoot. Well, we're going to have to, I can do the spot focus. You want me to do that real quick?
Oh, it's up to you.
I'll do it real quick.
As long as I don't zoom.
Sorry, guys. Okay. That shouldn't do it anymore. Okay, so I made a teal with the turquoise and white. We'll add a little bit of this in between. We're just trying to kind of create these sort of soft out of focus areas here. There's some colors, spots of colors in there in the distance. So we're kind of just trying to sort of indicate some of that. Here, I'll do some more solid shapes there. Maybe grab a little bit of turquoise, add some of that. There we go, darken it up just a little bit. Okay, so, and I'm kind of doing this dip right here, and then it comes back up. So it's sort of like this curving thing that's happening right there. Now let's start adding some of our pinks. Now let me get a little bit more of the yellow first. I'm going to grab some of the cadmium yellow and add a little bit of that down in here. Break up this background area. Maybe a little phthalo green. Okay, there we go.
Do you know any colors you could mix to make the turquoise?
Yeah, the phthalo blue and phthalo green.
Phthalo
so
blue.
If you have those two colors, just mix those to make the turquoise color. Okay, I'm going to make green with the phthalo green and white here. Maybe a little bit more phthalo green there. Quite that light. So just making various shades of green so that there's not just one color happening. There's a lot of different shades going on. It's looking good. All right, let's clean that out. And I'm going gonna grab my, now I'm gonna grab this brush again, this smaller one. Now we can use it to better effect. And we're gonna make a light pink using the Quinacridone Magenta and the Unbleached Titanium. The Unbleached Titanium is just like a soft white. It's kind of a yellowish white. It'll create a softer, more muted color than the white, straight white would make. So it'll be good for these background flowers to mix. Instead of using white, we're going to use this Unbleached Titanium because it'll have a little bit less pigmentation or less saturation of the color. It'll be a little bit more faded because as you go out or you're unfocused, the color gets less saturated, more grayed, and more blurry. So just going to add a few little areas, very, very little paint. Look, you can't even see the paint on my brush. I have so little paint on there. So I think that's one of the things that a lot of my students struggle with sometimes is they're for these kind of techniques, they're just loading their, they feel like they mix all this paint color and then they, you want to go onto the canvas with it. But we'll do that later. We'll get to that. We'll get to that part. For this part, we just need to have a soft touch. Don't use too much paint on your brush. Always wiping it off so that I don't have a ton of paint on here. I'm just going to add a little bit of blush to some areas. I'm going to grab some of that Quinacridone Magenta, a little bit darker color. We'll use some of that in a few places too. Now, if your paint's starting to lift or you're kind of noticing that it's not sticking to the canvas well, what you can do is just stop and dry your canvas at this point because it may need that. Mine's pretty dry, so I'm not having any issues with it. But if it's happening to you, then you can just stop and dry it out real quick. Not a big deal. And I'm just kind of creating these sort of random semicircular oval type shapes. That's sort of maybe a flower out of focus or something. Not trying to create any petals or anything like that. I'm just adding little bits of color to my green grasses. Okay, that's good, I think. Maybe a little bit down here. All right, so let's grab a little bit more of the Unbleached Titanium, make a softer pink now. We add a teeny tiny bit of purple to it. Just a little bit in the corner, because a little bit goes a long way here with the purple. It's so highly pigmented. So we'll add a little bit of a different color here. Some of these are a little bit more of a purple-ish. Okay, I grabbed the white that time. That's all right. Okay, wipe it off and go on here. Now, if you get an area like that where it's covering too much, you can use your finger. Just rub it in while it's wet. I'm going to go next to and on top of some of these areas that I've already done, just to add another layer of color in there. Maybe look like some of those little flowers in the distance have some highlight hitting them. And then there's a large area up here that's got some flowers in my picture here. It's quite large and solid. I don't necessarily want to make it that solid. I did it in my example painting and it just kind of looks like a big pink blob in the middle there. So I'm going to separate it out just a little bit so that it looks a little bit more like a couple of flowers sort of stuck out there and not just a solid pink oval. So that's just my own prerogative. You can play with it however you want to. There's a pretty good size area right in here too that's got some other brighter. So I'm grabbing that Quinacridone Magenta again and kind of adding some of that. This is all going to be our background focus, so we're not keeping it really blended. Are we doing okay, hon, in chat today?
We are doing good in chat.
Nice. Hi, everybody.
We'd like to say thanks to everybody who's joined us today. Give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the show. Subscribe to Angela's channel there. Hit the link. You can get reminders for future videos.
Yep, you hit the bell.
Hit the bell or click on it.
Click on it, yeah.
All the materials that she's using is down below in the description, and there's links to Amazon and other places, also to her Facebook page and Instagram and Twitter. You can follow her all on those there. And brush guys.
Yep, we got our affiliate links. So all the brushes that I'm using, except for this one, well, they do sell the titanium line, but and actually I don't have these kind of hog bristle brushes on my list. So
now, what's that one called? Somebody asked earlier.
It's called a hog bristle brush.
Just hog bristle brush.
It's a round number 10.
Okay.
But it's, it'll depend on the brand that you're using.
Okay, and they can click on the link to the brush guys and.
I don't have those on my list, though. Sorry. Okay. But this one is one that they sell on the brush guys. It's the Robert Simmons titanium line.
They can They can get 5% off.
Using the link Angela Fine Art.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to grab some blue now with some unbleached titanium. Grabbing some of the Ultramarine Blue. You gave them a lot of stuff to do there, honey. I don't know.
Yeah, I gave them a bunch of chores.
They did.
I'm going to be checking back. When I get back.
You want to have a thumbs up?
It all better be done. That's all I'm saying, people. I better see the numbers on Instagram going up and Twitter followers, and I'm checking.
Okay. If you're new to my channel, welcome. We are so glad to have you joining us. And we are all about teaching you how to paint with acrylics and make it a little bit fun and easy and take out kind of some of the guesswork so that you have success with your paintings. I hope you're inspired to try it, and I hope you enjoy the lessons, and you can share them with me on my social media if you do them. But I'm a firm believer that you don't have to be an artist or have talent, quote unquote, to be able to paint. Painting is a learned skill, just like playing the piano or anything else. You can, if you have a natural talent for it, it can give you a head start. But it doesn't mean that you can't learn with practice and a little bit of training how to do it. So if you've ever wanted to paint and didn't feel like you could, I want you to be inspired to feel like you can believe that you can paint, and that I'll help you do it, hopefully. So adding little bits of blue in between in my flowers here, just to kind of make it look like maybe some sunlight's peeking through or some that. So, all right. So I think we're good with the background. Isn't that pretty? I mean, that's just pretty just by itself. You could do that, maybe splatter some stuff on and be done. I really like it. So, but I think we'll keep on going here. I'm going to grab my, this is my Princeton flat number 2. And I absolutely love this brush. These Princeton ones are just the right firmness for me. I don't know. I like them because you can get real good control. Oops, don't drop water on it. Bad idea. That wet water will pull off your paint. So anyhow, yeah. I don't know what I was saying. Oh, Princeton.
We teach you what to do and what not to do.
Right, exactly. And don't do that.
You may not get that anywhere else.
Because I'll guarantee you that I'll do the bad thing eventually while I'm painting. Almost always. Not quite every show, but pretty sure. I've dropped my brush on my canvas before. And okay, so I've mixed in titanium white with my phthalo green, and I've grabbed a little bit of the cadmium yellow to soften it and make it a little bit more yellow. And I'm just going to do these soft, random grasses. Don't get too detailed with these. Keeping a very, very light touch, and I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. I'm just going to drag that edge up to create a few little grasses, and I'm really barely touching the canvas so that it catches on this texture and makes it fuzzy. So if I had a lot of water in my brush and wanted a super fine line, I could do that. But this time I'm wanting it to be really fuzzy. So I'm not adding a lot of water. I'm leaving that paint fairly thick and not adding a lot of paint to my brush, and just doing some of these grasses that are going to be fuzzy. It's the same kind of thing we've been doing with these it's dry brushing sort of with a little bit more detail here. Let me get a few of these grasses in here. Now, if it's not showing up, what you can do is grab a little bit of the darker color, maybe some turquoise. Grab a little turquoise. We'll do some of the grasses down here in this lighter area with the turquoise, darker green. There we go. So we want all kinds of different colors going on in here. And you can go right over the top of your pink flowers if you want. That'll make them look like they're pushed back into the distance. There we go. There's some turquoise. Yeah. Now, if they get too thick, use your finger to wipe them off a little bit. Or I can even use a wet towel if I really make a mistake and kind of drag the wet towel across. Here again, you don't want to do too much water and don't want to rub back and forth on something. If it's dry and it's going to stick. So don't try to rub off paint that's already dried. But if you catch it while it's still wet, you can usually kind of just pull it off the canvas pretty quickly if you get some that you don't quite like. Just make sure your background's dry, because if it's not dry, it's not going to come off, or it'll take your background with it if your background's still wet. Okay, adding some of these darker colors in here. This is really 90% of the painting. It's this kind of fuzzy background thing. We'll put a few flowers on top, but most of the focus is, or most of the background is this kind of fuzzy feel. It's looking really good. I like it. If I do say so myself.
Oh, we had a lot of comments on how they're loving the colors, and I mean, it looks so out of focus that somebody was saying, "Does it look out of focus?" Yes, that's
it's intentional.
That's what we're going for right now.
Exactly. Okay, so let's do these flowers up here. These are also going to be out of focus, so I'm going to go back to my my larger kind of scruffy brush, one of the stiff bristle brushes. It'll make it a little bit easier to get this scruffy. I'm going to take most of the moisture out of the brush, because here again we're still dry brushing. And I'm going to grab some Quinacridone Magenta, a little bit of the titanium, unbleached titanium there to soften it. But these colors up here are pretty bright, so we'll do a small flower up here. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 little petals, and they're going to kind of be petaled shaped this time. So now I'm getting a little bit, this is kind of like our next layer that's a little bit closer to us, but still out of focus, but it's not as fuzzy as the rest of this. So it's going to be a little bit more distinct, more defined, but still not 100% clear. So put a little bit in here. So we're still kind of using the fuzziness of the brush, using a light touch with the paint. Grab a little bit of red. This is my red color. I'm mixing it in with the Quinacridone there. We'll create kind of a oval shape here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 that are kind of on their side, like that. Let me zoom in to those, honey, so they can see them a little bit better. Oh, well, we'll see if it works. Do it. That's doing fine. Looks good to me. What do you think?
I can't tell. I'm on delay.
Oh.
Oh, no, I guess I can see there. Yeah.
Looks okay. Okay. All right. Let's grab a little bit of the Unbleached Titanium. Mix that with my red. And I'm picking just a tiny bit of paint. When I'm pulling my paints, if you notice, when I'm mixing my colors, I'm never mixing the entire puddle of paint because I want to preserve those colors. So I'm just pulling little sections off. Excuse me. Swallowed wrong. Pulling little sections off the side and then pulling them off to another area so that I can mix whatever other color that so I pulled a little bit of this color, drop it there, pull a little bit of the red, and mix them together over here on this little section that I've made. And that way I can kind of control where I'm mixing and get a little, ooh, that looks pretty. So very, very, very lightly going over these colors now to kind of add a little highlight to them. Let's add a little bit to this one. And maybe a little bit on these. Just barely touching, and I have very little paint on my brush. So it's barely kind of coming off and creating, it's catching on the canvas texture and creating these little pockets of color, soft, wispy color. Let's add some more down here. There's a couple areas that have these little brighter spots in them, so we're going to add those. Grab a little bit more of the Unbleached Titanium here. Add some really bright sections and a little bit more Unbleached Titanium. There we go. Get a couple little areas there that have really brightness to them. That'll create depth in our painting. Always what we're going for. Okay, let's put some over here. Maybe a little bit over here. And up in here where we had this kind of fuzzy stuff happening. Okay, still really, really out of focus because we're just barely brushing this color on. All right, let me clean that out.
People are liking this this tutorial because they've always wondered how to do the out of focus bokeh effect. Mm-hmm. And so they're really enjoying this.
Good, good. Yeah, this is a way to do it. I mean, I've seen it done with the little circle things, but then, you're not, like if you're doing details, you kind of need to do it this way. If you like had little like sunspots and things, you could get those little circular things and kind of create some of those in the background too. But this way we're kind of trying to fuzz everything out in our background. All right, so I'm going to grab some cadmium yellow here. You can zoom out now a little bit. And mixing it with white. It's kind of mixing a little bit. I'm doing it over the top of this area where I was pulling the Quinacridone Magenta and the Unbleached Titanium. So it's kind of mixing with that a little bit too. And I'm going to use that with, I've gone back to my round brush here or my flat, number 2 flat. And I'm going to add the center to this flower. Very, very light tapping. And No, that's good, I think. And I'm going to use it to kind of create some more grasses and a couple of little areas here where it's fuzzy. A couple of fuzzy. All right, I'll grab a little bit more and some of my Phthalo Green. I'm going to spray my palette there because it's getting dry. You do want to keep your paints moist. You don't want them to dry out and get too thick because then you won't be able to do anything with them. But you do want them to be thick. So here I'm going to add a little bit of this, tap a little bit of this green underneath the flower there to kind of show where they attach. Yeah, you can zoom back out in a little bit, because I want them to be able to see what I'm doing here. So I'm just using the corner of that brush and just tapping like a little triangle shape. So a little triangle at the base of those flowers there. And then good. So some of them will have it, some of them won't. But I want to add some stems in to certain flowers just to make sure that they have. Now, don't get too thick with these lines because you don't want them to be really super defined. You just kind of want to have some stems go into some of these areas where these flowers are so that it makes sense. But I'm still kind of using very light pressure with my brush. And okay, there we go. Let's grab a little bit of the yellow that we mixed over here. And we'll just add a few like little, maybe some of these had little tiny bits of yellow in them. Okay, good.
We got a question. Somebody's asked, how do you translate the size and perspective going from a picture or photograph onto your canvas?
I use the image itself. So in this case, it's the rectangle, and I kind of figure out where on that, is the, okay, so there's the center of it. There's the center of it this way so that this bird is below the center mark. Like if I made the mark right here, I kind of grid it mentally. I don't grid it, physically, but I kind of grid it in my mind and try to place the elements in that correct area. So in this case, there was a diagonal line from one side to the other that I'm trying to create with my canvas. And this one's, a little bit farther up from it, so it's kind of above that diagonal line. These ones are kind of right smack dab in the middle almost. I moved my bird in my example one so that it was hitting the, I don't want to set that on the wet paint, so that it was hitting the third mark. 'Cause there's a rule in painting, in the art world, that kind of the golden rule is to try to kind of have your, as often as possible, have your focal point in a third quadrant. So if I was to take my painting and split my painting this way in thirds and this way in thirds, here and here, that bird is smack dab in the middle of one of my thirds. So it's on the bottom third here and on the right third on this side, and it's right smack dab in the middle there. Oops, you're still zoomed in, so I'm not showing the whole thing, sorry. So he's not paying attention. Mr. Anderson.
I was requested to zoom in.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well,
But you were
anyhow.
you
All right.
were in there.
So anyhow, that's why I moved him there. Even though in the original image he's more toward the center. So if I was to have taken this photograph myself and cropped it, I would have made the bird in the third. That's just my own thing. So I hope that explained it. I don't know if it did or not, but
It sure did.
all right. Okay, so there we go. That's looking good. Let's add a little bit more color. Want a little bit more going on in this background before we start adding our flowers on top. So there's a couple areas of white. So I'm going to grab some white. Maybe a little bit unbleached titanium, so it's a little bit softer. It's not quite straight white. And this I'm going to use very sparingly. I'm going to wipe most of it off. But I'm going to use a little bit of it back in here. There's some area in here. There's some white flowers going on. Be real careful because the white can take over. So, and I might be using the wrong brush for this. I probably need to have my fuzzier brush. But it's doing okay.
I was kind of thinking that.
You were thinking that I was using the wrong brush.
Why are you using that number 2 flat?
Okay. I should have said something.
Well, I mean, you are the professional. And
Okay.
I was like, well, maybe I'm just, dumb, but okay.
Okay. Oh, here we go. There's the brush I'm looking for. All right, I'm going to grab some of the, let me think here. I feel like I want a little bit more of this Quinacridone Magenta. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of burnt sienna, so it'll make kind of more of a maroon color. And I'm going to wipe it off my brush and use a little bit of it a couple of places. Sorry, my touching my mic, leaning over on it. Yeah, I'm not doing very well with my mics today. Okay. Let's wipe that off. And I feel like we need some really bright grasses. So I'm going to grab some cadmium yellow medium. Grab the phthalo green. I added a little bit of the yellow oxide in there too, just to kind of dull the color just a little bit. And some white will brighten it up. There we go. I want it this bright kind of olive green. Oops, I'm not showing any of that. Sorry, guys. Okay, so I made this kind of olive green color. I'm going to use this fuzzy brush. Wipe most of it off. Grab a little bit more yellow. I feel like it's a little bit too. There we go. Too thick on my brush here. Sometimes when you mix the paint color, it'll be really thick on your brush, so you may just have to wash your brush out completely after you mix the color and then come back and use it, because it gets stuck in there. Okay, so I'm using some of this brighter, lighter yellow-green. Just add a few little spots. We're almost ready to start putting in some of our details. I just want to make sure that I've got all of this really pretty out of focus stuff figured out. Because we don't want to go back in and try to work around the flowers that we're going to put on top. So you really want to get your background sort of set before you do anything else over the top. That's why I'm kind of taking my time and making sure that it looks the way I want it to. Okay, I think that's good. So let's start adding our flowers in. This will be the fun part. I do want to add a little bit more of this brighter red up in here. Now that these are dry, I can grab some of that Naphthol Red and add a little bit of that over the top to brighten up some of those red flowers up there. Grab the Quinacridone Magenta and some white now. I'm going to mix a nice kind of medium pink with this. We'll start laying in our flowers. So there's going to be one way down here. There's another one. We'll put in some of these that are sort of farther away first. So just kind of some random flower shapes. Let's do one right here. Nice big one. So 1, 2. I'm figuring out where I want my center to be. So I want my center to be right there. Let's go zoom in here, hun, so they can see what I'm doing. All right, so I want my center to be here. So I'm going to pull all my petals down towards that spot. And I'm sort of lifting up before I get there, using the corner edge of my brush here, flat edge, and kind of turning it a little bit. Like that, okay? Let's do another one. There's another one right here. So here's the center. I'm going to pull from the outside edges toward it. These are all kind of facing away from us, so we're not going to see the centers of these quite yet. These flowers, there's another one right here. Let's get a little bit more of the Quinacridone Magenta for this one. So I've got both colors on my brush. I just picked up a little bit of the darker color now. And this one's going to be another cup-shaped flower. So there's my center right there. So I'm going to do some flower petals coming in towards it, like that. Let's do some darker on this one. Give it a little bit more detail. Get a little bit more of the Quinacridone Magenta. Some of these are going to just be partial flowers, so we're not going to see the whole thing. So I'm just going to put a few random brush strokes in there that will be sort of hidden behind the rest of what's going on here. Let's do one down here. More Quinacridone Magenta here. Keeping it very random, very loose. Let's do one right here that's sort of stick. Grab some of the lighter color, put some of the lighter color over the top. Grab some white. Streak back over some of these with the white. This is going to be a nice big one right here. This one you're going to see the inside of the flower a little bit, so I do like this, and then we'll do a couple that are sort of sideways, sort of like we did this one here. So two of them are going to just kind of plop a couple petals on their side there. And leave a spot in the middle for our pink to go, or our yellow to go in there. Okay. Okay, we'll do a nice big pink one right here. I'm just trying to find these darker colored ones first. There's one right here that's sort of behind the bird. Okay. We'll add a little bit of the darker pink to these to give it a little bit more detail. Whoop. Sorry. Get a little bit more of the light pink here. So you notice that I put down, so like this one, I put down the medium pink, I put a little bit of the darker pink in there. Now I'm going to go over with this lightest pink and add a little bit of that as well. That will give it just a little bit extra little oomph of depth. Okay, there's going to be a nice big flower right here that we're seeing kind of behind this big one right here. And this bird is going to be right here. Let me go ahead and put him in so that I know where to place everything. So this and this, and then there's a big flower right here where the bird is coming off of, and the bird is right here. So he's going to be right. Here's his head, this little circle. Then the body is like this oval shape, kind of like a egg shape almost. Then a straight line down the back. The wing cuts off part of it, and the feet are going to come forward from the tail area. And his little beak is right here. Okay. He might be a little bit big, but we'll see. We might make him a little smaller than that. And then so here's another big flower right here. Another flower right here. And there's that one. This one's down here. This one's going to be right up in here. Okay, this looks good. All right, so now I know where to kind of aim for my petals of my flower. Always towards the center. Make this one a little bit bigger so it's a little bit farther out. Grab that medium magenta here. We'll do one right here. Move it down farther. There we go. And these flowers aren't always going to be exactly perfect. You know, some of them are going to have little broken bits and things like that. So I'm not trying to make them all look the same or all look exactly, you know, they're all kind of facing different directions and that kind of thing. So that'll help with the effect too. Okay, I like it. I'm liking it so far. Let's grab a little bit more white. Now this one I'm going to put a little bit more detail into, so I'm going to take my time with the petals a little bit and make the outside of the petal, the tip of the petal, a little bit longer than the inside. So I'm going to use the edge of my brush for these. I'm pulling in just a few of these petals. I'm going to give a little bit extra detail, and that'll make them a little bit more in focus, a little bit more of the focal point, bring them forward, give them a little bit more of our attention. Okay, so that one I'm trying to make a little bit more realistic, a bit more detail. Grabbing some more white, and a little bit of white to that. Streak through. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I'm going to grab a little bit of white, and I'm going to make the tips of these a little bit irregular. So the tip, it's kind of hopefully you see it what I'm doing here, just from what I'm doing. The edge is a little bit, the top edge is a little bit taller than the rest of the petals. Let me pull. You can see it really well in this one here. That's what we're going for, that shape right there. Oh. It's this kind of almost diamond shape in the petal. So, all right, let's do one down here. I think I need to add my stems now before I do some of my final petals for our flowers. So, and we'll start adding in our centers of our flowers too. So I'm going to grab some of the burnt sienna, a little bit of the phthalo or Pyrrole Orange with burnt sienna. It'll make this kind of dark orange color, burnt orange color. And I'm going to use that around the centers of my flowers to create a dark halo. Then I'm going to grab my cadmium yellow and tap in a little bit of that on top. My dog is snoring in the background. I wonder if you can hear him.
At least it wasn't me.
No, it's not Mark. Could have been.
So, in all seriousness, this time, will there be a traceable available for this?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it'll be on Patreon, where I have all my new traceables. So the link to Patreon is down in the description. It's patreon.com/AngelaFineArt. So,
and what is Patreon for those who've never heard of it before?
Patreon is a way for folks who are following my tutorials to say thanks. It gives me a way to give back to you if you donate to the channel. I give little perks, bonus content, traceables. We have a Facebook group where I do art chats and things like that, and one-on-one consultations, and for the angel level, and there's just different levels of donation that give you different perks. So the $1 level is for traceables. So for $1 a month, you get all of the traceables that I do for that month, and all of the old traceables also. And then for $5, you get a bonus video, access to the bonus video. I do one bonus video every month. Last month was the sea turtle. So I've been seeing those around on Facebook. And those have been turning out really good. I've been impressed. So we've only been doing Patreon since February. It's been really successful. We've already been able to buy a new monitor, a new camera. We're really trying to invest back into the business. So it's a way for you guys who are watching my videos every week, if you feel like you want to kind of help contribute and give us a boost, help us maybe look a little bit more professional in our dealings.
Yeah.
I know, we look like we got the new logo. We just bought that too with the Patreon money. So we're fancy pants all of a sudden.
Yep. Our next investment will be a
Switcher.
so that we can have multiple camera views.
Yep. Yeah, we'll have a palette cam eventually. So, all right. I mixed this dark green with a little bit of the burnt sienna and this phthalo green. So I'm going to use this as my stem color and do my stem for these flowers. Now this time I am trying to be a little bit more deliberate and solid with my line. With these ones I was being real fuzzy. These ones I want to be a little bit more solid, a little bit more triangle shape there, right? Yep. Really kind of give each one of these a stem, the ones that are my more focal point type flowers. So this one is going to be behind the bird there. This one's going to be connecting. This flower is going to have some of that stem be underneath. So each one of these we want to give a little bit of detail to.
So yeah, we'll have a blow dryer cam, right? And
I don't know about that, but
soundboard cam.
Soundboard cam, yeah. Get Mark on camera.
Oh man, the sub rate's gonna go down. Lots of thumbs down.
How about that? All right, I'm gonna create some little small leaves off to the side here too. And I need to create, this one is going to come behind this and track kind of behind this bird or behind that one and sort of connect up there like that. So there's going to be a big flower right here, so I'm not too worried about that. I just want to give some place for our bird to perch on. There, I'll grab some white and we'll just put a few little highlights on some of these little areas, just tapping in with the corner of my brush. And using this edge of my brush will give me fine lines, sometimes better control than a liner brush. I just like to use these flat brushes for lines, but if you want to use a liner brush, you be my guest. You could use this. This one's a 20-0, the Royal Langnickel. And if you're using the fine liner brushes, you're going to want to wet down your paint to like a milky consistency, and then you can get some fine lines with them. If you use it with thicker paints, it just won't flow off of the brush at all. It'll kind of get caught, and it's so fine and sort of floppy that it doesn't have enough stiffness to stand up to the heavy body acrylics without them being watered down. So really have to give them a nice thin consistency. I've got some yellow that I've mixed into my paint here. I'm going to do some lines with this liner brush. Do some fine grasses, just adding a little extra detail. Are you getting comments about being on camera there, honey? I can hear you laughing and giggling in the background.
No, somebody said, dog cam, so we can do a snoring dog cam.
Can you hear that him
No.
on? He's being really loud.
No, and then a Mark not paying attention cam.
That's a good camera, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mark being on his phone or whatever you're doing over there.
Hey, I was checking, and I told everybody to follow up. We've had one new subscriber on Instagram.
Nice.
So excuse me, the rest of you.
Maybe they're already subscribed on Instagram.
Okay, well, you stop defending them. Come on.
I'm grabbing my turquoise here. I'm going to add some turquoise, some of it's darker. Yeah, there we go.
Somebody's asked if you have a video or tutorial for mixing paints, like one that's just specific to that. Did you do that on an art chat
No,
or
but
something?
I might do that on an art chat. That's actually a really good idea for an art chat. I'm going to start. That's a good segue to this. Mondays from now on, Mondays at 2 p.m. Central, I'm going to have small, short, probably 30-minute art chats where I'll actually be on camera. So I'm going to have to put makeup on Mondays. But I'll be on camera and I'll do little tips and answer those kind of things. It won't be necessarily tutorials, but it'll be informative chats. So, and it'll be interactive, so I'll be able to see your comments and hopefully be able to interact with folks. And, you know, if you have questions about certain things, I can hopefully answer them for you.
I wish I had one of those scratching record sound clips available right when you said you got to put on makeup.
That's exactly how I feel inside about it.
I won't be putting on makeup.
You won't be putting on makeup?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right. I'll have to do my hair too. That's even worse. The makeup is not so bad. It's the hair because I never know what it's going to look like. Okay, let's do our bird. We're almost there. We've got just a few more little details here. So I mixed up some cadmium, yellow, and white. And I'm going to use this color in my centers of my flowers too, just with this corner of my brush here, and add a few little flecks in a circle on some of these that are where you can see that. Otherwise, others, I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of there. And we'll put in our bird. So his little head is kind of like this, comes off and sweeps out. I'm going to make him a little bit smaller than I drew him. And then his belly comes around like this. There we go. These little finches, goldfinches, we get these in our yard in the spring, and they're here all year long apparently, but they don't come to our feeder all year long. I'm gonna grab some of the cadmium yellow light. This is where the cadmium yellow light comes in because it is a very, very vibrant yellow, and these birds are like neon yellow. So, whoops, it's not covering because it's drying. So we'll let that set. That's our first coat. We'll let that set. And I'll put in this flower that's missing down here now that we have our stems in and all that good stuff. We can put in our last daisy, or cosmos. I guess this is a cosmos. They're not daisies. I think that's what these flowers are called, hopefully.
Hashtag right. Nature Facts.
Yes, exactly. More Quinacridone Magenta. And we'll do a nice big flower right here in the middle. I don't know what I was saying. I was saying something about something, but the birds being in the yard. They're so cute. And they make the cutest little like it's the perfect little chirp sound that you might think of a bird. You know, if you were to pretend like to be a bird and do this little cheep, 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 cheep. That's exactly what they sound like. They're so cute. They sound like little fake cheep, 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 cheep. Adorable. Adorable. And they will, I don't know, it was last year or the year before that. Do you remember when they literally covered the yard? There were so many of them. Unbelievable. We were feeding half the population of Russellville, Arkansas, I think, in our feeder. All right, I'm adding this brighter pink, kind of this mid-level color there to that one. We'll add a little bit of white, grab a little bit of white on my brush, and I'm not cleaning my brush out in between, so it's going to mix with these and kind of create these kind of streaky colors. And yep, they're really cute. Scooter's cracking me up over there, snoring so loud. I can't believe you can't hear him. If you put the mic down to him, you could hear him. Okay, I'm grabbing the little bit of the white, and I'm just going to highlight a few of these flowers to... a little bit more detail, make them a little bit bigger. Okay, kind of went a little bit wimpy on some of these. There we go. All right, love it. I love painting flowers. They're so fun to paint. I don't know. They really are. They make me happy.
So somebody asked at the very beginning of the show, and I hope that they're still here, wondering, do you ever get tired of painting?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone years without painting, honestly. There was about 2 years where I got totally burnt out on painting. I was doing the decorative painting, though. So it was very repetitive type painting. I wasn't creating my own designs very much at that point. I was using books and things. I'm going to make a purple here with the ultramarine blue mixed with this pink. But doing this kind of painting, I don't get as tired of it, because I'm kind of always sort of creating. But there's definitely weeks where I kind of wish it would go away and don't feel like painting. So, it just depends on my mood. Creating can be kind of draining on you mentally. Kind of gotten into a good rhythm recently, but there's times when I do kind of get tired of it. So, but I don't know. Right now, with the way the channel's been going, and when I know that people are doing the lessons and excited about them, that gets me excited about it. And so I'm going to use some of this purple here just to kind of add a little bit of color to some of these flowers, and maybe put a little bit in these distant flowers here. That kind of gets me excited about painting when I know other people are watching and painting along with me. I much prefer having Mark in here and having you guys watching live. So it feels like I'm
More of a social thing.
Yeah, I'm an extrovert, so I want to be around people.
It's our own paint party version.
Exactly, yeah. It's like my own little mini paint parties.
For the introverts like me, it's good because there's nobody else in here.
Right, exactly. But it's the best of both worlds. Mark's happy, I'm happy.
Okay, got a question asking about the putting down the yellow. Asked why you didn't put down white first. Are you just going to layer the yellow, or lately where the bird is? Is
this? Well, I mean, I could have. Yeah, I mean, it's. I added white to the yellow though. I kind of tend to do that instead of adding. I kind of skip a step. You can do white first and then add your yellow on top. I usually just add white to my yellow and put it on first, and then put another layer of yellow on top. That's kind of just how I do it. But speaking of that, we'll go ahead and do that now. It just, to me, it saves an extra step. I'm all about efficiency, so kind of there, and grab some of the brighter yellow. There we go. And then I'm going to grab some of the burnt sienna and a little bit of yellow oxide. Use that under his belly just a little bit to just kind of darken up that belly slightly. Give him a little shadow. I'm going to mix his black color using the turquoise and Quinacridone Magenta. It makes a really deep, dark black. It's a really pretty color. It's got a little bit of that blue undertones. And And I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. Let's grab this is a 2-0 round, 2-aught round. Add a little bit of this red. Maybe that'll make, there we go. That's better. It's even darker. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of this at the top of his head. I really need to zoom in, but Mark's not in here anymore. He ditched me. And then the wing is going to curve back at an angle. And the tail is going to come down like this. We zoom in for the bird here and mix a little bit of white with it. Thank you. I'm going to grab some white. There's a little bit of white that happens right here where the tail meets. A little bit more of the black. I don't want his tail, the tail's not very long, so I don't want it to go too long there. Oh, I need to keep it in focus. Here we go. Grabbing the Pyrrole Orange, some white. We'll put in the beak here. So the beak's going to be like this diamond shape. It's going to go into the head a little bit, right here. Grab a little bit more of that darker Pyrrole Orange for the bottom part. Grab a little bit of the black on the very tip. Draw in a little bit of line on that beak. Grab some of that cadmium yellow now, and I'm going to kind of adjust my shape of his body a little bit. Thicken him out right there a little bit. Bring his head around a little bit more on the back. Grab a little bit of white there because I don't want to cover. There we go. Small changes, but all right. Don't really like his belly here. Let me see if I can get rid of that. Gave him too much of a belly. What? It's not focusing. Huh? Okay. Well, I'll put it back on. You want me to? Okay. Sorry, guys. All right, I'm gonna. Actually, it's the front of this that I don't like right here. Kind of curves. He's more sleek. He's not as fat-bodied as most birds, so I want to get him a little bit more sleek there. Okay. Better. see, his legs are kind of a peachy color. So I'm going to use that orange beak color, maybe add a little bit of the black to it, just kind of tone it down. And they're going to come forward. This one might show a little bit of it. There we go. Keep it very thin. It thickens a little bit where it touches the body, but they're pretty thin. And I don't have to do too much more detail than that. We're not trying to go for ultra realism here because the rest of the painting is not ultra realism, so we're trying to keep the bird a little bit more in that same sort of impressionist style, so I'm not being too picky about, well, I kind of am, but I want his feathers and everything to have a little bit of fuzziness. So I'm not being particularly clean in the way that I'm painting him, if that makes sense. Like I'm doing these kind of fuzzy things with it so that he has some detail. I'm going to grab some white now, add some white streaks to these feathers. There's a little bit of white down there. A little bit more of the black. There we go. Cute. Grabbing that yellow. I'm going to touch up right there where I thickened it up. This is a cad yellow light. Got a hair in there. Oh, great. See, I told him that I was going to do something dumb. Don't do that. Trying to get a hair out. It's still there too. Come on, out of there. There we go. All right. Should love live TV. I could have edited that out if I was painting. You'd have never known. That actually is good, though. I mean, that's one of the things that I think is good about live TV, live shooting this way, as you can see the corrections that I'm making, and this is a normal part of the process. This is not anything. I think all artists, we all have little things that we change as we work our paintings out. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some people that never make a mistake, or never make, any kind of corrections or things. But that's definitely not me. I kind of work out my ideas on the canvas a lot of times. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but usually when I'm teaching it, though, I've kind of already at least done it once, hopefully. So I'm going to grab some burnt sienna here with my liner brush here again. I've still got my small round brush here. I'm going to add a little bit of shading to the back of the legs here, just a little bit of, there we go, that's better. You can see him a little bit better. Let's give him a highlight on the top of the beak with some yellow, maybe a tiny bit of the white and orange color. Do some Now, if you wanted to do this painting and you're a first-time painter, you could leave the bird out completely. You don't have to, do this part. And I think just the flowers would be a beautiful, painting. So don't feel like you have to do the bird if it's freaking you out and it seems beyond your abilities right now. That's fine. Just do the part that you like. Change it up however works for you. Do a simplified bird. Don't, just do bird shape or something like that. You don't even have to do the real detailed bird like this.
So I could paint Larry Bird?
You could paint Lyrebird in here if you wanted to.
Okay.
I wouldn't say no.
Right.
I mean, not on my painting, but if you did your own. Okay, so right across from this top section right here, there's going to be the eye, and it's right kind of smack dab in the middle of his head. So there's a little circle for the eye right there. He's so cute. I like painting birds. They're so fun. Grabbing a little bit of white on here. I'm going to outline the eye just a little bit with white. And then do a little dot of highlight up at the top here. So he's kind of looking at you. He's like, what are you looking at? You looking at me? Okay, I can mess with him all day, but I'm not going to. Go ahead and zoom back out for me there.
Hopefully it stays in focus. Well, it looks like it.
Yeah, it should. Well, it's on autofocus now, so it'll...
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I'm going to put it back on autofocus. So it'll probably catch the brushes again, but that's all right. All right, got to put a center in this one, and we'll be almost done here. I think we'll be about done, actually. So, orange. And, okay, his beak is bothering me, but I'm not going to mess with it. Yellow. Bit of white. A bit of white. I think, okay, let me make sure that this is all looking good. I think that that's good. Now to finish it off, what I did is I took a fan brush and I made some light green. So just grab some of the cadmium yellow light and a little bit of the phthalo green, a little bit of white, just to kind of make this kind of soupy light green color. And I like to use a fan brush, but you can use a toothbrush too. Get it nice and wet. It needs to be thin paint or it won't flick off your brush. Dab it off just a little bit on the paper towel, and then I just tap it to create some of these sparkles or splatters or whatever in your painting. Can do some of the darker, maybe a little bit in the turquoise-ish color. Add some water to it. Make it soupy. Dab off the extra. Splatter with that. This will just kind of, I don't know, I like it. Sort of unifies the painting. It creates a little bit of that kind of dreamlike feeling that this one has with the out of focusness, you know. Is that a word? Out of focusness? It is now. Now, if I get too much on the bird, what I can do is just grab a little bit of wet water here. Make sure he's dry first. I probably should have thought about that. Tap off any of the extra stuff that I don't want on him. It turned out pretty cute. There's a little bit too much on that flower, so I'm just going to dab off some of those splatters on that one. There we go. We're done. Isn't that cute? Hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed teaching it to you. If you do it, please share it with me. If you're inspired to paint, make some art today, or tomorrow, or whenever. Oh, Mark's being sad over there. He wants me to get out Stickman. Okay. Sorry, I forgot. Okay. We'll do, Stickman's our mascot here. Well, we're already at 2 hours. Or no, not quite 2 hours. Is it 2 hours? Hour and 40.
Hour and 40, yeah.
That's a long time.
You got 20 minutes
I really wanted
to do Stickman.
I wanted to keep it down to an hour and a half, but I didn't quite make it today.
No, but I don't think anybody's complaining.
Okay, good. All right, we'll give him a little yellow bird on his shoulder here. Or on his, I don't know, that's his arm. Stickman is Mark's creation. I add to him every show, depending on what
almost every show.
Well, if I remember.
Mm-hmm. And we've got a missing person, too.
What do you mean?
Well, did you find the original Stickman?
No, I didn't. He's somewhere.
There's a mystery
I'm sure.
going on right now.
Yeah, I put him somewhere, I'm sure. So, all right, he's got a little bird now. We
Much
add
better.
something to him, depending on whatever we've been painting that day. So, he got himself a little bird friend. We done now?
I'm done.
Here, I'll sign it.
Oh, yeah. Well, somebody asked you to sign in.
I'm using my Faber-Castell Pitt pen here. This one's the 1.5 millimeters, I think. And I'm just going to sign it. I could use a brush, too, if I wanted to. Acrylic paints would work just as well with the liner brush. But I find that these Pitt pens work pretty well on these boards. And they're waterproof and light fast and all that. So they don't fade. They work really well for signatures. Okay, zoom out a little bit, hon. Thanks, guys, and we will see you next time. Tuesday night, we'll be back for another tutorial. And Monday, I will be on my channel for an art chat. So if you're around on 2 p.m. on Monday afternoon, you can check that out too. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.